So now that the modeling's out of the way, we can have a look at the unwrap process. So what I've already done here is I've just applied another material on there. So I'm just going to press Control Spacebar just so we can see in full screen. So I've just put a darker material just like we did on the first tutorial, just to get a greater idea of what the asset might look like with a bit of reflective coating on there, so to speak. And the other thing I also did was I just made another cube. I'm going to move that a touch. Just made a cube and I just popped it on the inside of the actual asset itself. The reason being is because if we don't, then you can see here we are going to end up seeing all the way through it. So, but just by popping that in there, I'm just going to undo a few steps. So if you can see, just the cube is just inside of that. So just a bog standard cube. Just pop it in the middle, and there we are. That will hide that off as well. So at this stage, you should certainly be capable of doing that. So let's now attempt the unwrap process. It is just a sequence of cubes ultimately, so it should be relatively straightforward to unwrap, but that needs to be done properly regardless. In the long run, from an unwrap perspective, you can as a designer get away with just using what's known as like an automatic unwrap, but I'll sort of explain that in a few moments. The first thing we need to do is obviously open up our unwrap editor window. If you can't see that for whatever reason, you can access it on Windows, modeling editors and UV editor. Feel free to assign a shortcut key as well. So unwrap editor, I'm just going to open it up on here. So remember, you can access it that way, which is great if you've got two monitors and you just push this over to the second monitor and you're off and away. If it's a case you are using one monitor, or one very large one in my case, but if it's a case that you're using just the one, then it's worthwhile just splitting the actual scene itself. So I'm just going to press Control Spacebar. It's going to go to Panels. It's going to go to Layouts, Saved Layouts, and I'm just going to find the Perspective UV Editor window. There we are. So that one just allows us to split it off quite nicely. I'm going to hide the grid. I'm going to press 5. So now let's try the unwrap process. So I'm going to select it initially like so, and then I'm just going to give it one big camera based unwrap. If you can't see the tools on the side over here, simply go to View, Tools and Show UV Layout, and then you can in fact just drag this across onto here, and then it will appear. So you've got a UV toolkit there. So I've just popped it over to the side. We'll keep it there. So I'm just going to go right click, select all the faces. I'm going to go to Create Camera Based and just agree with that. And the reason why I do that is it just simplifies the visuals. It's a lot easier to see that you've clearly got a shape that represents that, or a UV that represents that anyway for the time being. So let's try doing the top one first of all. So it's very much the case that we just simply have a sequence of cubes. So we need to be slightly careful here because ultimately a lot of the backs of the assets won't necessarily be seen. So what we can do is we should be able to just extract or separate. I'm just going to click on Separate, and that will detach all the individual components like so. And this is where we can just gauge if we've got any polys in there that no longer need to be there, and we can just remove them. It seems absolutely fine, to be fair, because we've already deleted the underside. If I hadn't deleted the underside, then this would be a good opportunity to delete some of those polys prior to. So now that I've done that, if I just separate that off again, what we can do now is just literally focus on one at a time. So I'm just going to select this one first of all. So it is literally a cube, and the easiest way to unwrap this is just going to be put a split on the ends over here. So I'm going to press Control 1 to isolate that. I'm going to zoom in over here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just turn on my texture borders. So Shift, right click, Polygon Display, toggle texture border edges. And if you look at it carefully, the UV border currently is this big thick line, or the thicker line here. It's not exactly that easy to see. It can be easy to see if you just turn on hard and soft edges. So if we go Shift, right click, and toggle soft hard, and toggle soft edge display. And now you can see that when I click on that, the dotted lines are what's known as soft edges, and that solid thicker green line is our UV seam edge. So we literally just need to put a split in. It's going to go from, say for example, there. Press F to frame in on that all the way to there. So if I double click that one, it'll select that entire loop like so. So in the UV editor window, I'm going to press Shift and X, and that'll put a split in. And we can now see there's a thicker line there that indicates that's where a UV seam is. And we're just going to apply that same process for the other areas. So select that one edge, press F to frame that, go up a bit, find that edge there, double click, and Shift X there as well. You can see there's a split in there, so we just need these other two. Again, I'm just pressed F, just select that one over here, and then double click that one, and then Shift X inside the UV editor window. That bit is quite important. If you attempt to do Shift X in this window, it won't actually do it. You have to just hover the mouse over here, and then it'll put the split in. And lastly, this one over here. So select there, press F to frame, zoom out a touch, and double click that edge there. So Shift X. So if you look at this carefully, you can now see we've got thicker lines there that indicate that's where a border is. So if we were to, at this point, just turn on our UV checker texture, which we might have to just move this out a touch. There it is, just there. So if I just turn that on now, you can see there's lots of distortion at the moment, and that's a sure sign that our unwrap is very incorrect. So let's assume that you were to, within Substance Painter, you wanted to put a big logo in here, for example, then that logo would be exactly the same as this in terms of level of distortion. It would be significantly distorted. So the whole idea of the unwrap process is to remove any distortion. So when you apply textures, there's nothing obvious in terms of smearing pixels, etc. So I'm going to zoom out a touch on there. Let's get rid of that gradient or the UV checker, and then we simply need to just select the UV shell, click on unfold like so, and that now was perfect. We'll just straighten that off, click on straighten UVs. Oops, it is not straighten UVs. Straighten shell isn't going to do it, you need to undo that again. Go to arrange and layout, and then orient. So now if we were to just turn on our checker map, you can see now there is no distortion. So if we were to put text or a logo on there, then it would come out perfect. You'll learn more about this when we specifically do the Unwrap lecture, but that's good to go. So the thing you need to take a note of here is if we look at this, a chamfered cube, provided there's no underside, in terms of a UV shape is always going to be this. If you can remember that, then you'll find you'll be able to unwrap lots and lots and lots of things, and you'll certainly be able to unwrap anything, any piece of furniture like what we've already made. So that's now done. I'm just going to leave it as is, press Ctrl 1, and let's just select the front drawers. I'm going to press Ctrl 1. Oops, a daisy. Press Ctrl 1 again, and then just press F. Just press F. It currently seems to have disappeared, not necessarily the end of the world. So what I'll do is, you can see isolate selectors on there when I press Ctrl 1, so I'm just going to press that again, and that'll bring it back. So if we look at this, these shapes are identical to what we've just unwrapped. So we just need to repeat the exact same process onto these other shapes. I'll just reselect these and isolate them again. So, thinking about what we've just done there, I think we might be better off, because there's a lot to select. We might be better off just selecting these and just pressing unfold on them initially. And the beauty of doing that, if I just press spacebar now to go to the full screen over here, is it will just allow us to see the split a bit better. So what we can do now is we should just be able to double click that edge, and that will select it, all of it. So rather than doing it the other way, which is a tad cumbersome, we're going to do it this way. So press Shift, double click that edge, Shift double click, and Shift double click, and press Shift X. And now let's just do a quick unfold on that again. And you can see that there matches what we know is correct based on what we did previously. So let's apply that same principle to these other bits. It'll just take us a few moments. So don't forget to press Shift to add that selection. So again, Shift X. So we know that's done. I'm not going to bother unfolding it at this stage. Just do them all together in one fell swoop. So while we're there, do that one. Let's grab this one as well. That should be all of them. Shift X. So just press Shift X. So just select all the UV shells and just do another quick unfold on those. And you can always orientate them if you want, and just press Layout as well, and that'll just separate them off. So that looks good. So a quick check to make sure things are good. Yeah, everything seems fine there, so that's good. So I'm going to press Spacebar. I'm going to press Control 1 in this window. So we know we've done this, and we know we've done the fronts here. So it looks like all that remains are the sides and this frame over here, and obviously the interior cube as well, which we'll do in a few moments. So I'm going to press Control 1. So with these two selected, let's just quickly unfold these again and apply the same principle. So quick unfold. You can always set up shortcut keys for this. I struggle to find things very easily on this menu. Hence the reason why what I've done is, in the long run, the buttons that I use most frequently, such as unfold and orientate and layout, these have actually been created over here and they've been put onto there. So I'll show you how to do that in one of the actual lectures. But that is actually very, very useful. If you want to know how to do it now, press F1 and read up on creating shortcuts. Very straightforward, but great in terms of reducing the time frame it takes to do things. So let's just unfold those. If at this stage they are far apart, you might as well just hit layout, and then that way it'll just move them closer to each other. And that way what we can do is we don't have to zoom out so far. So there's the wrong one. If it's a case you just accidentally double click the wrong loop, just undo that with the Control Z and then redo that. And then finally this one over here, and we should be good to go in terms of the main TV draw sections. Quick Shift X there, those are good to go as well. Quick unfold, quick orientate, quick layout, those are good. And then we've got this particular section over here. So this isn't necessarily difficult, but just a different approach to adopt here really. So I'm just going to select the frame again, press Control 1, press that Control 1 again, and let's just focus in on this. So if I look at this carefully, we've got a top and a bottom. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go to the right view, zoom in a touch. Let's move this a bit out. And I'm just going to essentially just select the top. I'm going to select all the top, press Control to deselect. If we look carefully what I've essentially got the top, including the bevel there. And all I'm going to do there is I'm just going to go right click, two edges, edge perimeter, and then press Shift X inside that window, the UV editor window. Click on the UV shell and move that over to the side. And you can always at this stage just press unfold. And that shape should correspond with that shape as well. So there's the top done. Arguably we could do exactly the same with the bottom. So let's attempt to do that. But before we do that, let's just think about what we've got over here. So what we'll do is we'll select everything. No, in fact, we'll do the legs first, I think. So I'm just going to select all the legs. So go to the right view, press F. So select these legs and these legs. up until this point over here. And again, I'm going to go to edge perimeter. So right click, control, right click, two edges, edge perimeter, and press Shift X there. I'm just going to move this across. So we should now have, I'll just click on double click on UV shell, we should now have the four legs separated off. So if we look at it carefully, the four legs, they've essentially got a bottom on there, and then we just need to put a split on the side. So my feeling is what we can do initially is select just the bottom, again control, two edges, edge perimeter, Shift X, and then while I've got those ones selected, I'm just going to move these out of the way. While I've got these ones selected, I'm literally just going to press layout, and then that way they're just a bit closer for me to do what I need to do. So what we're going to do with the size, define an edge. In the long run, you want to try and find an edge that's not so visible, so maybe the one on the inside of the leg might be our best option over here. So that particular one over there, which is, let's find out where that is, just there. So that one there, if I double click on that, it's going to go to that point there. So what we do want to do here is I'm going to turn on my soft edges again. Toggle soft edge, and for some reason I've lost my toggle texture border, so I'll put that back on there now. Great stuff. So that there. Just that one edge, one selecting. Just pop along to the interior of one of the others. I'll have to do this one first of all, I think. That one there. Press F to frame out. Just move across. And zoom in and find that. So that one there. And then finally this one over here. That one there. And press Shift X in the UV editor window, so that looks good. And what we'll do, we'll just move these shells out of the way. So these should all have the correct splits in there. So when we press unfold, it should all make sense. Yes, that looks good. So you can always press unfold a couple of times. It's not going to make much difference. I think it does it right the first time around. But if you're a max user, then pressing unfold a couple of times tends to give you the best results. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure that this now is all correct in terms of texture rate, because clearly some bits are a bit untoward at the moment. I'm doing this nice and early now just to get an idea of, to make sure that it's correct really. So I'm just going to go to set. I'm going to click on orient, and then I'm going to click on layout, and that looks good. So we can now see we've got some nice rectangular clean shapes in the bottoms as well. That will do us. And arguably you're not going to see the bottom anyway, so if you look at it carefully, that particular poly there, if it's sat on the carpet, in all likelihood you're never ever going to see that. We'll just leave them in for the time being. It'll do. Again, as a designer, you don't necessarily need to worry too much about that. The artist will essentially make things nice and optimized at some point. So that's our top, and these are our legs. So let's just focus back on this. And what have we got here? So we've got that interior loop. So what we'll try doing is try breaking this off. So here to here to here, and then back across. Back across to there. Let's see what this gives us. Well, we don't need to go back across actually, because that top bit is completely separated off anyway. Let me just figure out what I've done here. So I think we'll put some splits in here for the time being. So that one there. And this one as well. And just work my way along. And then finally this one over here. Shift X there. At this stage, I'm just going to do a quick unfold on this and see what this gives me. That's not looking too bad, to be fair. I think we can live with that. That'll work for us. Yeah, that'll do. That'll do. We would get a better result if we put a further split in here, really. So maybe we should do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to split this off further. So quick double click on these edges there. I had to double click twice because it didn't loop all the way around. So shift, double click, shift held down, another double click, and then finally this one over here, and then we should be good to go. And then double click there, press shift X. Let's do another quick unfold on everything. Quick unfold, quick orientate, quick layout. Yeah, that's far better. So it looks like we've done everything now. So what we can do is save our work, obviously. And press Ctrl 1 to unhide everything. So now what we need to do is, all the shells are indeed correct, they're just a bit all over the place at the moment, which isn't necessarily a problem. As long as they're unwrapped correctly, then this bit will work absolutely fine. So all we need to do now is, once you've done each individual piece, or sections of the pieces, and everything is essentially unwrapped, it doesn't matter what it looks like at the moment, as long as everything is unwrapped like we've just done, we just simply need to press unfold a couple more times just to make sure things are good to go. I'm glad I've done that actually, because what I had done is I'd forgotten about our interior cube, which is essentially that. So the reason why it's already unwrapped, because it was a default cube, the splits seem to have already been in there, so our cube UV should look like that. So that's good to go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to press unfold again, for argument's sake. Orientate the shells. What we do need to do is make sure the textile rate is correct. At the moment it won't be, so I'm going to press set to make sure all the textile rate is correct in relation to each other. And then I'm just going to click on layout. So that there is good to go. One thing to note is this here is that interior box, and that interior box is just meant so we don't see all the way through it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to scale this down significantly to there, because it's never going to be seen, it just needs to be completely black. So now this time around, when I now go to my shells and I do my layout again, you can see it's going to give us a far better overall textile rate, whereas previously the cube was taking up, that interior cube was taking up a large section. So that there is perfectly fine now, that's good to go. So let's now export this and dump this into Painter. So let's save it one last time. Let's just go to our outliner and just make sure things are good to go here. So first thing, I'm going to select everything. I'm going to go to Edit, Delete All by Type History, and then I'm going to go to Modify, Freeze all the transformations, and then I'm going to attach all this together. So Shift right click and Combine. And we can remove these bits over here, we no longer need them. Oops a daisy. I think what's happened there is when you delete one of them, it's obviously got some form of material on there. So it's just kicking up a stink. So what we'll do here is we'll delete them anyway. So I'm going to press delete. It's gone green, not necessarily a problem. We just need to press Control Space Bar, just go to the material editor again, Hypershade. And I've already made my material, so with that selected I'm just going to right click Assign to Material, and that'll fix that problem. And I'm going to call this SM, the static mesh, underscore TV underscore cab. And save that one last time. I'm going to turn on my grid. So the other thing which is vitally important is you need to make sure that the pivot point is in the correct location. Ultimately, in Maya, you are going to be translating the object on the basis of its pivot point. So in this case, we want to make sure that the pivot point is effectively on the direct corner, or at least on the very bottom of your object. So the way to do that is if you just hide the grid a sec, just go into front view, or might be better off doing this in the side view. I'm going to press F to scale in on that. I'm going to press 4 to go into wireframe, press D, and I'm just going to hold down V to snap, and then I'm going to snap it all the way to the bottom. Just keep pushing it down till it's there and thereabouts. That looks okay. You can always press V and then drag it and snap it. So if we just zoom in a touch over here, just press Control Space Bar. You can see it's not on the bottom at the moment, so I'm going to press V and just snap it directly to the bottom there. Then if I just go into my top view, press F to frame in on that. So all I'm going to do now is press V, drag it all the way to the end here, and then drag it all the way to the end there. So it's essentially going to be in the bottom corner of the object. Now we just need to turn on our grid again, go to shaded mode so we can see what's going on. There we are, so it's over there. So what I've done is I've popped the pivot point on the other end. I really should have put it there, but never mind, I'll just leave it there for the time being. So all I'm going to do now is, with our object selected, I'm going to press X and I'm just going to snap that to our grid there. So that should be perfectly in 0 to 0, 0, 0, 0 UV, 3D space. So save it again and delete all by type history again. Freeze transformations. I always save, I'm paranoid now. Our UVs are good to go, so let's export this and pop it into Substance Painter, which is going to be our next step. So file export, export selection. Make sure you're using FBX again, exact same process as before. I'll just pop it into, I'll put it into my projects again, exports, and then correctly name this, so SM underscore TV underscore cab. So smoothing groups and triangulate for putting it into Substance Painter. When it comes to exporting out into UV4, you need to re-export in max and just make sure smooth mesh is on. So export that out. So that should be done. One last save and we're good to go. Now we can open that up in Substance Painter.